I thought that I was going to read a lot more this month. COVID has theoretically given me more time to read, but I've had little motivation to actually read. I don't know if any of you have felt that way as well. However, I did read some, and in this video, I'm going to share with you the books that I did read in the month of April. So we'll start with a series I've already talked about on this YouTube channel before, and it is the Mouse Guard series by David Peterson. This has been such a delightful, enjoyable read. I had previously, prior to this last month, read a few of the entries in the Mouse Guard universe. However, I wanted to complete that, and so I did this last month. It is a graphic novel series. Originally came out in comics, but brought together in a few different volumes. There are 3 primary volumes with Fall, Winter, and Black Axe. This last month I read Black Axe. I read some side stories like Spring 1153 and Baldwin the Brave, which is a collection of short stories, and I also got into the Mouse Guard Legends series, which is something different than the core series. In fact, this one's not even primarily written by David Peterson. This series is a collection of illustrations and stories that were created by some of David Peterson's friends and other illustrators in the comic universe. This kind of side series is called Legends of the Guard, and it's set up so that you've got these. By the way, here's the premise of the whole thing. We are following a collection of mice that are anthropomorphic, that it's kind of like set in medieval times-ish. They've got swords and scabbards and shields and axes and all of these things. And there's a subset of mice that are the Mouse Guard that protect the various villages and pathways of these mice against the natural predators like snakes and hawks and owls and all of these other kinds of creatures. Here in Legends of the Guard, we've got them sitting in one of their pubs telling these, I don't know, mythical stories of the Mouse Guard and the different, stories of their history. Some of it's true, some of it's false, all of those things that you would get from a typical pub story. And so you've got different mice telling different stories in their own unique ways, which is a perfect way for this to happen, because in Legends of the Guard, you've got different artists in their own styles telling different stories from the Mouse Guard universe. Again, that might be myth, might be legend, but it's just a very creative way for David Peterson to bring in these different illustrators and authors and friends to be able to tell stories and have fun in his universe. Anyways, I've loved every single entry in the Mouse Guard realm, and it's not even done yet. He's continuing to work on future pieces here, but if you haven't read Mouse Guard yet, read it. It's such a delightful treat. Now, on the entirely other end of the spectrum, we've got Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. This is the second entry in the First Law trilogy or series that he wrote. I read a couple months back the first book in this series and enjoyed it. It was different, it was unique. I hadn't spent much time in grim dark fantasy before, and so it was all new to me. I loved the characters. That's where Abercrombie shines, and the story was okay too, but you've got different POVs in the first book. Here in the second book, Before They Are Hanged, you also have different POVs, and you've got a lot of the same characters and even more development of who they are, but this book wasn't my favorite. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first book, but more than that, this type of literature is just slow to me. And it's a lot for me. It's packed with not only illustration of the world that Abercrombie is trying to create, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens of characters that I'm supposed to keep up with. And we've got multiple different character arcs, and especially in this book, that they're not really merging. They're all in their unique spheres, and they do have a few touch points throughout the book, but they're really spread out in this one. And because of that, it just made it difficult for me to stay engaged. I am a huge fan of Abercrombie's prose. I think he is a great author. I just think that this genre might not be for me. And so this is all on me. I again gave this a I still liked this book, but it was hard for me to stay engaged, hard for me to follow along. I still love the characters, and so I imagine that someday I'm going to finish this trilogy by reading the third and final book in the First Law series. But for now, I'm going to put it to the side and at least act like I'm not going to continue reading it. If you like heavy world building, dark themes, really intriguing characters that are jacked up, messed up, and you hate them and you love them at the same time, then this might be for you. But again, I just think that the style of literature, the type of genre, the type of fantasy is just not what I enjoy most. So I say that, and then I read next The Lies of Lokimora by Scott Lynch. Here's the problem. I didn't know that it was also grimdark fantasy. It's a book that I had heard of many times. Friends and other booktubers and readers have encouraged me to read this book, knowing that I like heist kind of stuff. I like where sometimes I like the idea of the protagonist being somewhat of a bad guy. I like some of these themes and ideas. However, The Lies of Lokimora, although incredible title, although incredible world, although incredible story, it just took way too long for Lynch to tell it. Truth be told, I almost did not finish this book. I almost put it down a few times, but especially about 100, 150 pages in, and I was like, I just don't think that I want to do this anymore, because it was moving so slowly. The nature of the prose itself, Lynch likes to build out his world, which is admirable and poetic and creative. He's just taking every opportunity to do it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like old fantasy, where, you know, even with Tolkien, where just spends page after page after page, maybe even chapter after chapter, building out the world, which I think that was fine for a time then, and maybe it's even fine for a subset of people and readers here, but it's something that just bogged down the pacing and it made it very difficult to read. Additionally, when Lynch is giving us these world building elements, so many of them don't even apply. Like, don't even matter to the story. It's just as though Lynch is saying, look what I can do, or look how good of a writer I am, or look how well thought out my world is. And let me say this, I do think that he's completely thought out his world, maybe more than most authors have, but I think that this might even be somewhat against him, because he spends so much time telling us about its history, about why this bridge is here, or how these buildings are built, or who these people of the historical account are, and building out this city of Comor, that it's a breath of fresh air when we finally get back to the characters at hand and the story at hand. So I'll say that the writing style is what's not my favorite here, and actually was a deterrent for me enjoying this book to the fullest. I love the characters a lot. I love Locke and I love Jean and the friendship that those two guys build. In fact, there's a lot of books that don't focus on male friendship, and I like that it spends a lot of time here. I like the characters of Father Chains and even the Bonds Mage and the Grey King, the villains here in the story that take a long time to actually get to. I like the characters. I even like the plot and the story. I just think that it could have been done in half the amount of time, and for me, would have been something that was a lot more enjoyable. I wish that I would have enjoyed this book a lot more, but I didn't. There's a great story in there, it just takes way too long to get to, and left me frustrated. Arm of the Sphinx is the second book in the Books of Babel series, beginning with Sinlin Ascends, which I read last month, maybe the month before, and I talked about it on this channel. It blew me away. It's an indie treasure is what I just said, and is what is stuck in my mind as I come back to the series. I wanted to give just a little bit of time before coming back into it, and I don't know if I gave myself enough time, because again, Sinlin Ascends has such a fond place in my reader's heart, especially for this year. It's going to, I know we're not even, we're not even halfway through the year yet, but it is going to be one of my favorite reads of 2020 and new discoveries of 2020. However, when it comes to this second book, a lot of people find it was even better and more enjoyable. In fact, I think that it has even a higher rating on Goodreads than Sinless Sins. I liked it, just not as much as the first one. Josiah Bancroft is an incredible author, and even more so an incredible storyteller. So much of that his characters are built out here and fleshed out here. He focuses on really just a handful of characters that were first introduced in a scattered way throughout the first book. Here, he focuses in on them and even gives us more point of views, whereas the first book was primarily, if not entirely, through the eyes of Thomas Sinlin, our main character. Here in this book, we have got a few different characters that we get to see through their eyes. In fact, there are many chapters that do not even have our main character, Thomas Sinlin, Tom Mudd, whatever you want to call him, in the chapter itself. We've got to focus entirely on different characters, and I liked that. But when it comes to the story of the tower and its different ringdoms, its different levels, and the mystery therein, we have a whole lot less of that in this one. A whole lot less. That is really good. In the first book, we find out about the tower itself and its multiple ringdoms, and we journey through 3-4 of them, of the rings, as well as the base level. There's some of that. Here, we really just have one that we spend all of our time in, and it's the Silk Gardens. There might be a little bit more there with the library, but we don't find out too much more. We find out more about the tower, but we don't get to explore any of it. We don't get to see any of it. One of my favorite parts from the first book was the introduction of the tower and the character of the tower and its different ringdoms and how each of them had their own mysteries to be solved. Again, we don't get much of that exploration here in the second book. And so I felt that lack. But where there was that lack, it made up for in the evolution of the characters that we know and love. With Edith or Mr. Winters, Adam, Volita, loved her in this one. The Sphinx, Luke Marat, all of these different characters are really cool, really well thought out. A lot of fun to explore who they are, the mystery behind them, and where they're going and who they're becoming. I love that part. So listen, I didn't enjoy this book as much as the first one, Sinless Sins. However, it was still an absolute marvel. It's still so much fun to be in this world that Bancroft has created, and I can't wait to continue. I know that the third has already been released, and this week he released the title and an incredible trailer for the fourth and final book of the series. So this is one that I'm definitely going to read all the way through. Last and least is White Sand Volume 2 by Brandon Sanderson. A man whom I love, who I revere, who I respect. You are my man. You're my favorite modern day author. I love almost every single one of your works. So I don't know what this pile of garbage is. I didn't love the first one, but it's in the Cosmere and I'm going to read all of them, and it's not that difficult because it's a graphic novel. I can just look at the pretty pictures. But why? This is on a new world where there's sand magic, and it has to do with water and hydration and magic mastery over sand. And we've got a character who is trying to become kind of the new leader of his people, and he's being attacked and assassins are coming after him, and he's trying to, in this volume, go around and unite, I don't know if it's the kingdom, but just unite people to his cause. And he's just doing that the whole time. But the characters are boring. The writing, the dialogue is awful, abysmal, really, really bad. Some of the dialogue is just laughable. I'm like, is this serious? The story evolution is not even that good. The magic build out is not that good. And what could be the saving grace in the artwork, because it is a graphic novel after all, is not my cup of tea. Some people might find this artwork intriguing. I think it's ugly. This is not the medium that Sanderson shines in. I'm glad I read it because it's Sanderson. I'm going to read all of his work, and especially in the Cosmere. But man, oh man, oh man, this is not where Sanderson should spend his time. If he were to write just a little small novella or even a full novel from this world, I would read that and enjoy it 10 times more than what this garbage is. So do not read White Sands. Just take it from me. It's not worth reading. If you want to know what the story is about, you can read my review on my Goodreads, but stay away. So once again, I didn't read too terribly much this month, but I did read some, and I plan to read more this next month. If you've got some book suggestions that you think that I should read based off my opinions here, please let me know in the comments down below. If you found yourself agreeing with me or strongly disagreeing with me on any of these works, like if you love White Sands Volume 2, please let me know so that I can unfriend you. But as always, thank you for watching this video, for liking it, and if you haven't yet, click subscribe so that you can join the Dragon Army, and we'll see you in the next video.